and demonstrating council's commitment to openness and accountability. All speakers must ensure their comments are relevant to the issue at hand and refrain from making personal comments or criticism by mentioning any private information. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specially authorised by council to do so. At prayer, we give thanks for the contribution by pioneers, early settlers, and those who built the various walls for the fabric of Townsville community we have today. May the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be accepted in thy sight. Amen. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Yuppabal, Kamilaroi and Bunjalung nations, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. Councillors, is there any disclosures of interest? No disclosures of interest. Apologies, councillors. We have apologies from Councillor Forbes and from Councillor Maxwell. Councillors, could I ask for someone to move and second? Please, Councillor Layer. Thank you. Second by Councillor Berry. All in favour? Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of ordinary meeting, 18th of May 2016. Council, with someone who is in attendance, please like to move that these records are true and correct record of the meeting held. Councillor Murray, I thank you. Second by Councillor Shipman. All in favour? Again, thank you. Council, we move into a public access session. Before we go there, we have already done our first one of the presentation from the Gilbert Warriors Rugby League Football Club. We have two speakers, Ms. Cheryl Jacobs and Mr. Jeff McKillop from Liston. And I would ask Cheryl to come forward. Councillors, please stand and welcome Liston to our chamber. Well, Mr. Jacobs, you have 5 minutes for the presentation, and it's on the operational plan. Well,
I don't need to hold the microphone.
no, that's fine. Oh, okay.
You pick it up?
Yeah. Thank you.
So just turn it on. Hello. Is that working okay?
Yeah.
Yes? Very good. Okay. Mr. Mayor, elected community representatives, staff and guests. Today, I ask each of our elected community representatives to closely consider the following significant corporate governance matters which I think need amendment in the updated operational plan documents which are before you today. The first one, page 26 of the operational plan, changing progress measures and adding an action. There is a missing word in the first progress measure for the third action, where the progress measure reads, the residents are satisfied with the ... and timing of waste collection services. So could you please ask the officers to provide the missing word before approving the document? A suggestion is that the residents and ratepayers are satisfied with the need for the charge levy and the timing of the domestic waste collection service. The second progress measure, curbside recycling implemented, needs to be removed entirely. This is supported by the engineer's 16th of June letter, which states, at this stage, there are no plans to introduce a curbside recycling service, and also this progress measure is not related to the action for Mount Lindsay Road mandatory domestic waste collection charges. The third progress measure, increased number of curbside services on established routes, needs either removal or amendment as proposed below. It could read, affected ratepayer surveys demonstrate support for increased number of non-mandatory household waste curbside services on established routes. And please add another action to the third action line being, conduct a community survey close to the end of the 12-month trial to ascertain the community's plural views regarding the waste service, in particular whether the service should be extended indefinitely. This included action is again supported by the engineer's 16th of June letter. The progress measures could be the number of bins returned to council, signifying the collection is not needed, wanted or affordable. And secondly, the charge for the mandatory service is reasonable for necessary operational expenses, i.e. it doesn't create a surplus and can be done within existing resources. The target could then be majority support, being a number of positive responses divided by the number of rates charges for each community. If it's not significant majority support, then discontinue the curbside collection, and a break even for essential expenditure. The next suggestion, the operational plan, page 42, change the action and progress measures. The Fit for the Future requirement on council is 60% own source revenue, not maximise revenue nor increase revenue by 40%. The whole last line in strategy 6.1.c needs urgent amendment so that A, any additional or changed services are not mandatory, and the community explicitly wants the services as evidenced by prior survey results. The increased revenue should not result in an increased deficit for council, and the increased revenue should not create a surplus for council after essential expenditure only. The next suggestion relates to the revenue policy, pages 20 to 24 and page 36, which is a whole new appendix B that you have, which is 9 new designated waste collection area maps. From the affected ratepayers' perspective, these 9 new maps for Liston and Legume in particular extend even further the officer's notice letters, which beyond the actual decision of along Mount Lindsay Road by including and within the larger villages. The shaded maps further extend the council decision as they contain properties which are not within the larger villages. They are wider than the village boundaries and signs, and they include roads other than Mount Lindsay Road. The proposed maps identify the included properties. The maps are a key component of council's legislatively required decision on the new mandatory Mount Lindsay Road waste collection charges. Councillors, if you do not agree that the shaded areas in the maps are exactly what you understood and intended to approve at council's March meeting, then you should require, in my opinion, the officers to amend the maps to reflect the intentions before approving the updated operational plan you have before you today, and that this request be noted in the minutes. The General Manager sorry, Mr. Mayor.
1 minute. 1 minute?
Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
I thought you wanted to talk for 1 minute.
1 minute.
Okay, I understood that the 100 plus Liston and Legume complaint petitions, possibly up to 200 voters, will be tabled today, but I'm not sure if they are. Okay, your active support of affected community ratepayers is sought before you approve any other officer recommended decisions. Please actively implement the principle of supporting the community members, especially the ratepayers who will be expected to pay any mandatory charges imposed of them. Please actively implement the principle of no mandatory charges for services. If the services are needed and wanted, the community members will happily sign up for them. Please apply these principles to the whole of Tenterfield Shire Council, even though the current 100 plus complaint petitions relate to the Liston and Legume communities of Mount Lindsay Road. Please do not support any extension of any mandatory charges or services or any new or extended curbside collection or other charges unless there has been majority support by a formal survey of affected residents and ratepayers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you for my time. It's Mr.
No, and I thank you. To be fair to everybody, to our next speaker, solid on 5 minutes.
That's
Thank
fine.
you. I thank you for your presentation, and I thank you for that you put into the printed version of what I've got in front of me.
Yes, I thought that
a little bit you haven't. It's there to read, and I do thank you.
that's right.
Petitions are
Thank you.
here, and once we do the next presentation, I will table it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
Thank you.
my community rep.
Thanks for your presentation. Councillors, we do have another speaker, Mr. Jeff McKillop, and I would invite Jeff to come forward. Once again, councillors, please stand and welcome a visitor to our chamber.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. McKillop, once again, same rules apply. You have 5 minutes, and I wish you well.
Unfortunately, I've got 3 hands. So, okay. My talk today is about consultation and the community. My name is Jeff McKillop, and I live in Liston. We go to operational plan 1617, page 2, the community. Who is the community? The community is a wide group who live in a particular area. When deciding policies, how many of you do you need to talk to? How many do you need to communicate with? Only a few, a large number, a community meeting, letters, emails, some of these, or all of the above, and any more. What about personal conversations that can't be verified? Got to put it in writing. Then we go to page 4, items 1, 3, 4 and 5. 1 is integrity, ensuring openness, honesty in all our activities. 3, accepting responsibility for providing quality needed services and information. 4, respect, treating people with courtesy, dignity and fairness, regardless of our personal feelings about the person or issue. Excellence, being recognised for providing services and programs that aim for best practice. We've got page 5, continue to discuss with our community. Again, community, how many? 10%, 20%, or just a few on issues? Page 9, introduction to recycling. Liston has embraced recycling with a doubling of recycled material going to further processing. We've got a huge, therefore, we should have a huge reduction in general waste going to landfill. The council wants to encourage recycling. That is what we are doing. Page 15, item 138, foster constructive and productive communication channels. It happens, but we need more. We need more information about issues that affect our community. Now, that information going to the community. Is it 10% of the community? More than half? Or just a few? Don't use a big stick, please. Mandatory. Page 25, again, recycling. We're embraced recycling. Just have a look at the figures and what we have achieved. So there is a huge reduction of general waste going to landfill. 29, our community. It should read, I would imagine, that it says the community, but I think it should read the council and other levels of government, key stakeholders, will work with the community to address local issues. Communicate with the larger community. We've got page 40, 2.6. Again, our community is actively engaged. How many? Council decision-making process are open and corruption resistant and based on sound integrated policy. Planning. Is it? Council maintains sound safety and risk management practices to protect our community and our employees. 42, ensure the
1 minute, Mr. McKelvey.
Thank you. Council's strategic direction reflect the views of the community. Again, how many residents? 10%, 20%, how many? Page 44, you asked for obtaining quality feedback. Peter was going there, Petty was going to put on the table a petition. Well, there's our feedback. The feedback may not be public, but have a look at the comments. You will be surprised by the number of people who have commented and the type of comments that are in there. Page 52, so I'll go to closing statements. Who of you will stand up, show leadership for the rights of our community, to admit that there has been a mistake and to rectify it? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKelvey. Focus. Councillors, in the democratic society that we live in, there is a petition table. I'm happy to accept the petition from the residents of Liston and review. To 2 speakers, I will offer you that if you want to hang around for a little bit for the wonderful occasion when we have Smoko to speak to councillors, you're more than welcome. So that offers there. So, council will move on with our meeting now. And we move into our reports from committees and delegates. In a hard copy, councillors, we're on page 8, and it's item RC 21/16, reports from the Shire Local Traffic Committee, held on the 22nd of April. Councillor Murray, firstly, thank you for chairing that meeting in my absence, and which you have done on a couple of occasions. And as chairman, I would ask you to move the adoption of this report, please.
Yes.
Thank you, and do I have a second of that, please? Councillor Peters, I thank you. Councillors, any questions, comments to do with the report to be noted, or Councillor Murray? No questions? Councillor Lowe, yes?
In relation to the accessibility to the library, and I see all the problems there, there was to be, I don't know whether it's accessible, but steps or some way of getting from the cafe into the library. Will that method of getting through that doorway make it an accessible entrance to the library from the cafe, in which case the two accessibility parking spaces would mean that people could get into the library from those. I just don't know quite what's been planned there.
What I'll do, Councillor Lowe, I'll hand that over to our Director of Community Planning and Environmental Services, Mr. Pike, to answer that one.
Short answer is yes, that would make the building accessible and compliant. Long answer is that the investigations of the ramp are still in tow. The Heritage Advisor has had a look at the installation of different structures in terms of retrofitting something to the prefabricated heritage work within the school of arts there. The other portion that we need to look at is the concurrence and the impact on the lessee that's on the other side of the library. It is something that's under investigation, though nothing final has been decided.
Thank you.
Mr. Engineer, did you want to comment? No. Councillor Lowe, I hope that's answered the question.
Yes, thank
It is one of them ongoing things, and I do commend you in that course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just saw it as a possible solution.
Any more questions, comment to do with this report? Councillors, all in favour of adopting? Noting? Vote yes, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to page 13. To do with the report to do with the it's item RC 22/16, Disability Advisory Committee held on 11th of May. Councillor Forbes is apology today. Would someone like to move the adoption of this report? Councillor Berry, thank you. Second by Councillor Lowe. Councillors, any questions, comments to do with this report? Councillor Berry, I'll go to you first, then Councillor Lowe.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. We've got somebody from Erdville that wishes to get onto this committee, but they can only do it by phone conferencing. So if that's possible, they're going to write to the council and they can get on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That helps the strength of this committee. And I do believe with conversations with Councillor Forbes as our chair that it's going on pretty good. So just Councillor Lowe.
I note the resolution for a business award for accessibility, which I think is terrific. And I've wondered in the past whether we could combine an award for accessibility with obviously community grants which are available for accessibility, with a heritage grant either from council or elsewhere, which would help some of our businesses to actually become more accessible. Am I clear about that? It's just that there's a possibility of combining two types of grants which would allow a community award.
Well, Councillor Hull, I'll come to you. Just go to the Director for Mr. Director.
If someone was successful with two separate grants, I don't think there'd be an issue with providing them in terms of works to a heritage structure that would also bring them in line with current accessibility standards. In fact, some of the heritage grants that we have given out in the main street have gone towards raising the accessibility towards those particular shop fronts. Yes, I don't think there'd be drama with it. In terms of combining the actual grants, because they come from two separate sources, that's not an option for us.
No, thank you. I didn't mean to combine them. It's just that we might have two come in at the same time, or more or less, and we would, because it's more difficult to get accessibility grants often than heritage.
Agree, Mr. Mayor. That's correct, and there is nothing that would prevent someone from using a heritage grant or accessibility reasons, as long as it fit the criteria for the heritage grant itself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you, Councillor Ray, for your question. Councillor Hall, I apologise.
Thank you, through you. That was going to be my concern, that this business award wouldn't necessarily be open to everybody, because people who have heritage buildings can't change entries into shops. It's very inclusive.
Comment, Mr. Director?
Agree, Mr. Mayor. There is ways that heritage buildings can increase the accessibility, whether that's permanent or semi-permanent structures, depending on the lay of the building and how the building meets at its facade, whether it's a semi-permanent structure or not, and that has been implemented in a number of different shop fronts throughout the main street. The commercial boutique hotel is a good example of a semi-permanent structure. But yeah, in terms of the access award, I don't think it would be more limiting than any other award that would be offered for alternate fabric in line with trying to raise community accessibility in a particular area.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillors, any more comment, questions to do with this report? All in favour of adopting? Again? Okay, thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 18. It's the item RC 23/16. Again, the Wollongong Road Alliance, 13 May, as one of the representatives on the council variant, the deputy chair, I'm happy to move the adoption of that report. 5 seconds, please, Councillor Rivera, thank you. Yes, deputy chair, we've had plenty of news to do with this, and as everybody's aware, we received the commitment from our federal and state governments for the $24 million to do with it. That's fantastic news a fortnight ago, and it just adds to the weight of what a good job that this committee's been doing with the relationship we've got with our cross-border councils, with Scenic Rim and with Southern Downs, and with our neighbouring councils to the east. It's been a huge effort, and to see that become fruition as far as the funding is just great news. So the future looks bright. Any questions, councillors? Or comments? No? All happy to adopt? Yeah, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 27 in the hard copies. Item RC 24/16. It's to do with the Merrill Weekend Seminar, which was held in Sydney on the 21st and 22nd of May, which was attended by Councillor Murray and Councillor Forbes. Councillor Murray, would you like to move the adoption of this? Yes. Second, please. Councillor Petrie, thank you. Councillor Murray, would you like to give us a little brief update on that wonderful experience that you had here on Councillor Forbes out there?
Yes, it certainly was. It certainly was a wonderful experience and a very layered one, and it made us very aware of the role, particularly the mayor players and the politics of it. We were very well received, and it was very interesting to talk to all the other mayors, predominantly from the city. And what was astounding was that the amount of money they've got to spend. So that was really something. Just apart from that, it was quite good. Full on.
Any questions to the Councillor Murray to do with the weekend? No, councillor, just a quick comment from myself. I do thank you, councillor Murray and councillor Forbes, in his absence, for putting your hand up to attend. They are important weekends, and having attended that myself and giving you the opportunity to attend, I think it's really good to see our councillors attend these things. And I've got no doubt that you and councillor Forbes would have been tooting Tenterfield strongly in your attendance down there. So I do thank you. Councillors, all happy to adopt the report. Against? Councillors, move on to page 28 in our hard copy. It's item RC25/16 to do with the Public Arts Committee. It was lack of a quorum, but it was an informal meeting. Councillor Berry, being the chairperson, would you like to move the adoption? Thank you. Second of that, please. Councillor Lay, I thank you. Councillor Berry, being the chairperson, any comment to do with that committee and how it's going?
Just about the Bruno sign, Mr Mayor, that really intrigued me about the fact that it's probably one of those only type left in the state. We might get a fair grant to repaint that one. Repaint part of it, leave part of it unpainted. Yep. It's an original form, so, and the other King T signs coming along well. Yep. Thank you.
And to remind councillors, and I do thank you, Councillor Berry, that with your on the board of directors to do with the Arts Northwest, and I hope all that goes well. And it's important, councillors, that as a council that we're supporting of these groups, and I do thank Councillor Berry for making the effort, and I know that he's been heavily involved with the Arts Northwest, and I know he has to strengthen this committee because it's a good thing. So, but I do thank you for your efforts, councillor. Councillors, all happy to adopt the report. In favour? Yes, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to the first of our reports from our officers. And it's to do with item 33. I'm sorry, committees. Sorry, I just see. Okay. To do with item RC26/16, the Internal Audit Committee. Can I have a move and second, please, to adopt? Councillor Lay, thank you. Second, Councillor Murray. I'll hand over to our Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Alan Short.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. The report's there for the last internal audit meeting, June, 1st of June. It's fairly explanatory. The only thing I might just comment on there is item number 2 in the recommendation. First, discussed in March. Just in case you're not sure of those. Those items relate to asking the directors and 3 policies within their own areas to determine, the 3 policies which they believe would be biggest risk in their area. So that's probably all I need to comment on this stuff. Any questions?
Questions to the Director to deal with this report, councillors? No questions? All in favour of adopting? Yes? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 37, item RC27/16. Reports of committee to Parks and Gardens Committee, held on the 2nd of June. Councillor Murray, being the chairperson, would you like to move the adoption? Yes. Thank you, Councillor. Second by Councillor Shipton. I thank you. Councillor Murray, any comments to do with the meeting?
Through you, Mr Mayor, apart from the fact that it's, the committee is running extremely well, we've got full house there, and each community is properly represented, which is very enlightening. So I think going very well.
I did make a comment. I was hoping that it would be tabled that the federal government is elected. The Conservative government, they have committed, I think, from memory, I did a presentation straight on the email, $30 million for local government for parks and gardens areas. And I just wanted to note it, that I think that's a fantastic thing, and it's up to the council, if the government's elected, to be aware of that and pursue that money. I think. Questions, Councillor Berry?
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director. With the zero-turn mowers, I believe there's not much difference in price with some of them. I don't know about the Toros at zero mowers. Is there much difference in price there, and are they within our budget?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is something which has been on and off the agenda for quite some time now and continues to be raised irrespective of the answers that are brought back to the committee. The zero-turn mowers in some cases are not that much more expensive than the standard mowers. In some cases, they are considerably more expensive. The problem that we have in conversations with our fleet manager is that the ongoing costs for council are considerably higher in the provision of zero-turn mowers. The scheduled servicing, as well as the damage that tends to be done by operators who may not be as confident or skilled in operation as our internal parks and garden staff when they're actually using those mowers. So there's a few issues that the fleet side of council needs to look at in the provision of any of these particular pieces of plan to the community. In saying that, we've had some pretty robust conversations since this meeting, and it is something that we will continue to investigate. I would also note to council that it is not included in the budget that's presented to you today.
Thanks for the question. Thanks for the comment, Mr. Director. Councillor Lane.
Thank you. I note that there is a recommendation for us here today. It's only an investigation of the provision. And with the Toro zero-turn mowers, I noticed 2 villages want them and they're quite happy to pass on their old one to another village. It seems to me that we need criteria for decision making about this, like which villages have the greatest area to mow and which have the greatest complexity of it. Well, this is just in my uninformed view, that you can't just decide, well, we'd like one of those and we'll give our old one to that other village. I feel that that's rather demeaning and it can easily be escaped if we set criteria as to how we why and how we allocate. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Before I go into Councillor in attendance at that meeting, I hope the way I'm reading this, the only reference was that unbeknownst to the committee, and with the representation we have Torrington, we weren't aware that actually Torrington did not have a mower. It was mentioned that in a perfect world, if the finances were there to do this and replace it with a zero-turn, for argument's sake, to Legume, we're in the possession of a very recent region mower, but that new mower would then go with that process.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to preface this to council by saying that we are very fortunate that we have villages that take it upon themselves to undertake a lot of the maintenance and the mowing. The amount of community pride that comes out of those villages is a great benefit to this council. I'd like to personally do what we can to see these issues alleviated into the future and to both satisfy the community in these areas, as well as work within the realms of resources of council that we have. The investigation of the provision of zero turns will continue on the basis of the points that I've just raised, though I can't give any.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just to all the councillors, zero-turn mowers, the difference in price is to do a lot with the steel they're made out of. You buy one of the cheaper ones, they're made out of very low grade steel. They get wrecked very easy. I'll wreck one. I bought a better one and it's stood up for the last 10 or 12 years. I've never had any problem.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor, there more comment questions to do with this report? We're happy to adopt. Against? Carried. Councillors, move on to page 42. It's item RC 28/16 in your hard copy. It's the Essex Executive Steering Committee. Being a member of that and attending the meeting, we'll have to move the adoption. I'll second it, please. Councillor Hull, thank you. Councillors, any questions, comment to do with that? Just a quick comment. It's noted they're absolutely fantastic. Mr. Peter will be receiving a thank you letter that everything made with going out to the rivals kid, and it's just a great thing was well received in that committee, and hopefully we can make a bit of time to attend these other schools as mentioned. Councillors, all happy to adopt? Against? Carried, thank you. Councillors, move on to the last of our meetings. It's page 47 in your hard copy, so item RC 29/16, Danville Shire Council SARYARD Committee. Being the chairperson of that, once again, I'm happy to move the adoption of this report. Councillor Lay, second, thank you. Questions, councillors, comment? No? All happy to adopt? All in favour? Against? Carried. Councillors, we now move on to our reports from officers. Before we do, as Mayor, I'm very honoured today to welcome our new General Manager to his first meeting, and I know I speak for all the council. Mr. General Manager, I wish you well in your endeavours as our General Manager, and I know that you've hit the ground running, and the community has been very complimentary in the effort you've made thus far, Damien. So I do wish you well, and we look forward to a happy future for our Shire. I know that you're sincere and passionate about it as everybody, so welcome. Well, I do, and councillors, we're saying that, what I would ask with respect to our presentation, guys, what I'd like to do is, on page 54, which is our operational plan, with the support of the council, I'd like to move that forward. We deal with that now. So come on, we'll move in a second to move this part of business. Councillor Lay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Shifter, all in favour? Against? Carried. So councillors, what we're doing, we're moving item GM 031/16. It's operational plan 2015-16. I'm sorry. I apologise. I'll skip right ahead. Thank you, Mr. GM. I'll start that again, councillors. Page 61 we're moving forward. It's item GM 034/16. Operational plan 2016-17. And try to move in the second to deal with this report, please. Councillor Berry, I thank you. Second by Councillor Lay. And it's much pleasure I hand over to our General Manager, Mr. GM.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the report in front of you is fairly self-explanatory and exhaustive. We would welcome any questions to either myself, the Director of Corporate Services, and Finance.
Councillors, questions to our GM or to our Director? Councillor Lay?
Thank you. I haven't just found the place on my iPad yet, but I think I can do
Take
it.
your time, Councillor.
Under the fees and charges for the year, under sale yards, we haven't included the resolution which we've just passed on the feeding of stock plus 10%, etc. Now, I'm assuming that that is because we couldn't, having got past it, we couldn't put it out for public exhibition. Am I right? And that we will have to do that separately because it's not included under sale yard fees and charges.
Through Mr. Chair, the first draft of operational plan would have been out before that meeting, and so the meeting was actually held, so it's a timing issue.
Yes.
Ensure council was able to strike fees and charges at any point in time that are not materially effective, materially affecting people without having to go through the meeting. So the question would be is whether it's a material impact. Saying this is probably not. It could be just including operational plans and minor. But as council adopts it out of this meeting, council will.
Thank you. Well, it isn't actually included under the sale yards fees and charges currently before us in the revenue statement. So could it please be included in that?
Thank you, Mr. More questions, comment to the report, Councillor Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to various directors and the General Manager. There's a lot of questions raised and submissions raised by Cheryl Jakes, Jane Irons and Anne Hammond. Normally we get a response from these at our meeting like this, what the directors would say about these comments. And I'm just wondering, has any of the directors or the General Manager got any comments on some of these issues?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, it's just been mindful not to enter the debate as an officer, provide direct information. What I can say is that any of the recommendations come from the public, if council staff signaling those as they change, then it would be included. where they haven't, they've essentially noted those comments and they're not recommending changes.
Councillor White?
That would not preclude, would it, councillors themselves from raising a motion at some stage to, in relation to, I'm thinking in particular of one submission, in relation to that submission. It wouldn't have to be in the operational plan at this point. It referred to something quite different.
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me, in relation to the submission on tourism, it was raised that there needed to be better communication with operators of tourist ventures, and one of the suggestions was for the formation of a 355 committee on tourism. Now, that could be raised obviously later as a motion from a councillor, or even when we were having a workshop or a briefing session, discussion among staff and ourselves as to whether that was something which would advance one of the key objectives, which is tourism in the Shire.
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely. It's a short answer. And it's an important point to note. A lot of the submissions to the operational plan aren't actually submissions to the operational plan. So we covered everything from our missions to our CSP to how we form committees, to our governance structures and everything between. So in short, that's why a lot of those don't have comments. They handle different mechanisms. There's the ability always for the council to bring motions before us. Also flag that there's a new council to be elected in September. At that point in time, we must revise our meeting practice. We must complete review with the community about the strategic plan. We've already flagged internally that we're now taking a major review of all of our strategy and the integration between it, as well as our code of meeting practice, our governance structures, committees that we use, community engagement, everything else in between the next 12 months from a top-end strategy and direction point of view is going to be under review. So a lot of this will be direct in staff, senior staff, taking the information away, and we'll utilise it in those reviews. As far as the adoption of the operational plan today, from this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Berry, yes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the, I think it's the Director of Engineering, this one. With the maps supplied with the Eastern Area pickup, or the Mount Lynchie Road pickup, it appears to me that the map at Eastern goes down Bondi Road. I'm not too sure because I couldn't work it out. No, that area is not in the pickup. And at the beginning, it looks as though it's going up Killarney Road, and that area is in the pickup. Is that any problem? Do we have to alter the maps?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, the maps for the town sites cover those roads which are included now as paying council. So for Lagoon, for example, the town site would include a certain number of roads to a point. So in Lagoon's case, Killarney Road, or a portion of Killarney Road, would be included in part of what is defined as the town site. And similarly, so the maps, I believe the maps are correct. So we would be servicing a part of that road because it was part of what is the town site, or what's deemed to be the town site.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. One more question here. I'm just going to formulate it a bit better.
Oh.
The zero turn one's been answered, but if we were to say alter these maps or alter the pickup, it would be impossible at this meeting because that would be virtually a rescission motion, I presume. That'd be right.
I'll hand over to Gentleman, Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, in short, the technicality is the council can't pass a motion, it's directly negative motion. On that. So it's about whether it's a direct negative previous resolution. But the previous resolution outlines a service and an area and a requirement to bring back maps. Then yes, there would be problems. Passing a direct negative over a previous resolution, which we can't do. The exact properties outlined in maps, you could make a case to fit around the edges, but I'd say no caution against it. I don't know that it speaks to the issue that's been raised. To be honest, picking winners on the edges who might be excluded or included, and we don't know the edges whether those in. So I do it. But one caution just around passing a resolution, maybe a negative resolution. That answers your question.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Chair, I'll allow one more, councillor.
One more with the budget. It's it appears to me that the airport runs a terrific loss. It's just a comment more than anything. I just think we've got to do something about that in the future.
Without any aerodrome.
With our airport, yeah, $24,000. Thank you.
No. Councillors, any more comment or questions to the GM to do with the operational plan, councillors? No? All happy to receive and note? Yes? Carry. Councillors, then we'll go back. Correct me if I'm wrong. To page 52. Correct? Now hard copies, item GM 030/16, it's council resolution register. Can I have a move in the second here, please? Councillor Murray, thank you. Second, Councillor Lane. I hand over to our General Manager to present the report, Mr. GM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, as outlined in the report, what the report to council now is just basically a standing report. The idea as such is to bring together a couple of processes internally and make those standing external reports. It's around the resolutions passed by council and our progress as far as implementing those. It's important, obviously, to keep councils up to date. I think we have a number of mechanisms quite good at doing that, but I think it adds some value to the community also to have a standing report on a monthly basis to be able to keep up with areas of interest to them. It's something that we use as an internal tool anyway, a couple of operations. So for us all to be viewing the same thing as far as progress goes, I think it's important. Also offers a trigger point for the council to ask questions about commend the report.
Councillors, any questions to the GM? To do the report? Councillor Lane?
This isn't a question, but I was at a Progress Association Monday night, and I have to raise at that meeting items which I think would be of interest, obviously, to people there. I raised this, and it was very well received. I was surprised not. I said it was something that was really important for councillors, but it's also the community was very happy to see it. And to know that it was a public document, there it is, and they can access it online or however, at any time.
And I support your comments, councillor. In the meeting with the GM yesterday, and I shared that with him. I think it's pretty good. Councillors, any more questions to the GM to deal with this? Or happy to adopt? So, thank you, councillor. Councillors, you want to break this up? I asked 25 to 11. We'll break the smoker now, or keep talking off? Break the smoker? Yeah. Okay. We'll break the smoker and we'll be back. What do you reckon? 42?
mayor or a councillor attending and being elected and becoming the chair of it. So because of our membership board, we believe that you're absolutely correct. There's a meeting and the technical version was large.
That will leave, thank you.
If I can just comment on that one, so the rest of the council is fully aware. That group which our GM was referring to, our council, do an outstanding job in our region. And I've attended the meeting because I was out there for 2 days to attend another meeting the day before, but asked what I was doing there, and the feel the love in the room wasn't there because I was a councillor. So I was there to support our manager of waste and sewage at the time, so I quickly funded my goods and wares and left. But they're a good group and chaired by the Mayor of Uralla, Michael Pearce, who does an outstanding job. That AGM was held in, when he's elected or won, the meeting was held here in Jannerfield. It did attend to welcome him. But the GM's raised some good points, and so have you, Council, but it is a really good organisation, and it's mainly staff, and they do a great job supporting the whole region to do it.
The other committees, I know the Internal Audit Committee is a very different type of committee, but it's probably good for people accessing this document to know that among councils, who some don't have one, we do have one. I don't know whether you wish to include that or not. Yes, thank you.
We'll now just to cover on that. We'll go to meetings to make sure.
That we've got it. Yeah. And the last one was the Arts Northwest, and I hadn't sort of realised until I see it in this this agenda that in fact, although Councillor Berry is a councillor, he is not elected as a councillor. So should it appear here? Or not? I mean, it's good that it appears and people know that we've got a representative on it, but it isn't a councillor committee.
We'll have a look at all their constitutions and make sure it's really not listed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lake, for your questions. Councillors, any more questions, comment to do with this report to our General Manager? No? Well, happy to receive a note. Yes, carried, thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 82, sorry. Item GM 036/16, starts Northwest Arts Means Conference, double 27 October 2016. Try to move and second to deal with this, please. Councillor Shipman, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hull. I'll hand over to, once again, to our General Manager to present this report, Mr. GM.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just put the report as is. Obviously deals with Councillor Berry's attendance at a conference. So I probably can't add more value to the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillors, questions, comments? All in favour? Adopting? Yes, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 84, your hard copy, item GM 037/16, public gates and vehicle bypasses, so draft policy. And we've got a procedure to do with. Councillors, can I remove in a second, please, here? Councillor Berry, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hull. It's a great pleasure I can introduce our Director of Engineering Services, Mr. Stephen Bell. Mr. Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, Council. This report is to do with public gates and vehicle bypasses. The policy has been reviewed with no material changes being made. One of the major changes that, if there is a change to be made, is that we've brought the policy in line with current legislation, but also recognise the fact that there is a procedure that's attached to the policy, which, to be fair, shouldn't be part of the policy. As our General Manager has already alluded to, policies are a policy of council procedure to do things at the administration level. So that's been separated out of the policy so that if in the future it needs to be reviewed, can you take any questions?
Questions to the engineer to do with this? Councillor Berry, yes.
Is there any demand for public gates on roads these days, or most of the ones that need it are in place already?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we still find dozens of people per year buy for gates and grids. We're doing the moment, so there is a demand for that.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Director of Engineering Services. Public gates. I'm happy with the labelling of the public gate. what it does, lets the public realise they're entering a property, but public property. Right? I've had this problem over the creek. There was a public gate, not that I've got a label who I refuse to label, I said, if everyone else in the show labels their gates, I'll do the same. Nobody has, so I haven't done it. But they, go down the creek, go down. Sort of public gate, public property, they can't anywhere. Right?
It's 3 years, Mr. Mayor. The term public gate is what's described in the legislation, so it's simply referring to what's already termed on the gate. So, we're not doing anything that's outside the realm of what we should state in our policy. Secondly, there are a lot of road reserves that we have in our shire. Some of those where we have a road, a physical road in place, others where we only have a paper road, but the land is actually with council. In those particular instances, they are still deemed a public roads. Therefore, when we receive an application from a landowner to stop in or whatever, and they want to get access, if you're going to put a gate near the grid in, it is a public gate. So, by and large, the public are able to get in there because it is in effect a public road. You cannot deny the public from accessing what is deemed to be a public road.
Councillor Wright. Sorry, Councillor Wright.
I note in the report the change you made that the permit holder has to maintain the road carriageway for a distance not exceeding 20 metres each side of the structure. On page 5 of the actual document, right up on the third line from the top, it says the seal maintenance over the 10-metre approaches. Rather, is that I was quizzed, or I was certainly at a meeting the other night, as to whether the 10-metre referred to sealed surfaces and the 20 metres was to gravel surfaces. I was unsure.
Through Mr. Mayor, the requirement for 20 metres is actually described in the legislation, so it says up to a distance of 20 metres. So the review of the policy and the procedure brings it in line with what is stated in the legislation. It also gives not all locations on the same either. We name some like gully, so the extent of road which is required to accommodate the gate, maybe so 20 metres is considered fair and reasonable. I'm not quite sure where that is, but it should be the same. So but it depends what the approval says. So when an application comes into the council, we will assess it and then we will put the relevant distance on there. It can't be more than 20 metres, but generally speaking, it's around about the 10-metre mark.
The two references, 1 to 20 metres and 1 to 10 metres, are not contradictory.
I would have to have a look at that location, but they should be, in essence, be the same. So 20 metres is 20 metres as prescribed by legislation. So that may well be an error there that I have picked up. Yeah. Whether it be sealed or unsealed doesn't matter. The essence is still the same. Yeah. Okay. It depends on what we apply when we issue the approval. Okay. So it can be anything up to 20 metres.
So that occurs right at the top of page 5 if you want to have a look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll go back to Councillor Berry for a question.
Mr. Mayor, to the Director, with the public gates sign you got from the public gates, there'd be nothing stopping the landowners putting public gate and property either side of this road is of private property. Am I correct? Or no trespass?
Yes. 3, Mr. Mayor. Key difference here is that the gate is put in to a company lot. You know, it's a key requirement. It's there to allow the public access to land that they can legally access. Okay, so even though land, like what Councillor Peters has, that he has a property where he has a road reserved to his property, you cannot deny the community access to that because of the must keep the gate unlocked, and you can't put anything up there saying this is private property, because that strip of land, unless you lease it, is public land. However, the public are not entitled to go beyond the limits of what is prescribed to be the road, which is typically about 20 metres.
Councillor Peters.
Another quick observation question. What if the road's not on the road reserve or the road belongs to the landholder? In my case, it does.
Beckley. Mr. Engineer.
I want to thank Councillor for all the questions. I can feel the love in the room. That's true. I'll preface this by saying that council has 1,600 kilometre roads in the show, and a lot of them are not within the gazetted road. Not uncommon. It's a problem we deal with daily. A question from landowners saying, looking on the road, GDS. It's simply a case that over the course of time, that was the best location for the road. A bureaucrat in Sydney, times gone past it, drawn lines on a map about where a road should be, irrespective of what the contours might do or what landmarks are in place and so on. For council to shift roads would be a very costly task for us to engage in. So we are covered by the Act. It's under existing use rights. The Roads Act does actually allow public use roads that are actually been in place for a long period of time. If you're asking me what a council going to do about shifting the road, not right at this point.
Councillors, any more questions, comments, in the report? Councillor May.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Who does the onus fall on, Mr. Director? Who does the onus fall on for public liability or if an accident occurs on that gate?
Mr. Mayor, the liability is landowner.
On, forgive me, on 10 metres on each side? Is that, that's that?
Mr. Mayor. Here's what the permit says. So let's, for the sake of the exercise, the Act says up to 20 metres on either side. So if the approval was for a grid and a gate to be installed on a public road, inclusive of doing any work on that road, the owner would be responsible completely for any liability within 20 metres either side of that grid or gate.
And just further to that, Mr. Mayor, do you cite an insurance or do you suggest that they're insured or what happens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with every application that goes out, we have a duplicate letter system that goes out. That the owner has to sign it, acknowledging that they've read the requirements of the permit, and we also receive a copy of their insurance, which basically indemnifies council for any claim arising out of anything that might occur at that location. Remembering that these grids and gates, our preference is not to have them. Okay? Our preference is not to have them. The reason that they're there is for keeping it stock.
Thank you. Councillor Peters, I will take one more question and I'll close the question. Move on. Councillor Peters.
Engineer won't like this one either.
Be kind to him, please, Councillor.
What happened next door? Mrs. Johnson's property.
Please, Councillor.
So cleaning up the grid, right? And a car ran into the hole. Before they got around to putting the drums and stuff up, the car was wrecked. And the cross company didn't pay. The council roads were granted. The owner of the land and council. Anyway, and we didn't repair it. And they discovered it wasn't on the road reserve. And eventually, after a lot of chewing and blowing,
Good outcome, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not quite sure how you want to respond. I'll simply take it on.
It was just a comment to Councillor. But anyway, but good stuff because it deals with everybody in the show. We are a little shy. And comments have been fair and thank you, Mr. Engineer, for your response. Okay, councillors. All happy to receive the note, please. In favour, against, carried. Councillors, moving on to page 87, Finance and Accounts. It's item COR 15/16. Do I move in the second here, please? Councillor Hull, I thank you, seconded by Councillor Lay. As with great pleasure, as always, we welcome our Finance Manager, Mr. Paul Joyner. Welcome, Mr. Joyner, to present this report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just add to the finance report an update to cost actually as Lehman Brothers Australia liquidators declared dividend 32. What will happen next is dividend will be declared. This cost will then, in accordance with the funding agreement, a distribution process that will occur shortly. And with regard to
Very good. Sorry. Feel the light.
sorry about that. If I
No, it's fine, Mr. Jordan.
in regard to the claim by Lehman Brothers Special Financing US on the recovery of the Federation CEO, that's all now been the settlement agreement has now been approved by all parties, and it's now gone back to the board for approval. Once the court approves it, then we can release the settlement amount, and that's additional to
Thank you, Mr. John. Any questions to Mr. John to deal with this report? As Mayor, Mr. John, always, as a council, that we're very appreciative of the work that goes into this and the report that's presented to us. It keeps us up to date with this, the actions that we've been dealing with, and I think it's in a good place. Councillors, all happy to receive a note. Yes, carried, thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 89. It's a posted expenditure report. Item COR 16/16. I will move in a second here, please. Councillor Murray, I thank you. Seconded by Councillor Berry. And once again, I'll hand over to our Finance Manager, Mr. Paul Joyner. Mr. Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regard to the posted expenditure this month, there's nothing material to terms of voting expenditure.
Thank you. Councillors, no questions, comment? All in favour? Yes, carried. Councillors, move on to page 91. COR, item COR 17/16. Statements of income and expenditure. Go and move in a second here, please. To do this one. Councillor Lay, thank you. Second by Councillor Pinches. And once again, I'll hand over to Finance Manager, Mr. Paul Joyner. Mr. Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this report is a requirement of code to present the budget for the 2016-17 in the required format. Any questions on the doing something?
Questions to our Finance Manager? Councillor Lay, yes.
It's really a comment picking up what Councillor Berry said earlier about the aerodrome on page 13. Net cost of services, the expenses are 25,000. The income has risen from last year's budget, when I think it was $600. It is now 1,000. We are making a huge loss, and it isn't the only. I'll just highlight that one because it's already been raised, but there are other losses that we really need to look at.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any more questions to our Finance Manager? I'm happy to receive a no. Yes, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Joyner. Page 92, councillors, this item PNG 21/16. The Engineering Department Activities Report. Councillors, can I move in a second here, please? Councillor Shipman, I thank you. Second, please. Councillor Hull, thank you. And once again, I'll hand over to the Director of Engineering Services, Mr. Stephen Bell. Mr. Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to provide an update to Council on the activity undertaken by engineering services during the month of May. Rather than go through the activities, I'll have to take questions. The only thing I will say up front, just for the advice of Council, is that the two fixing country roads applications have been determined and we were not successful.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer. Questions to do with the report, councillors? To the engineer, Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the sale of equipment through Grays Online auctioning, have you used or thought of using selling a surplus equipment on eBay or Gumtree, one of those?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's an operational issue. So I won't get into that. Suffice to say that we have used eBay before. We find Grays Online being more effective.
Another question, councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again. The contract on Wallaby Creek, when's that going to start or has it started?
We used to be a contract sort of started with the site meeting contractor on site last week. And I should have been constructing the platform now. So the binding will actually set the poles in place over next week.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer. Councillor Lowe?
I'm disappointing as the results are. I'd really just like to say thank you to all the engineering staff who put so much money and effort and visits to, people who are supposed to help you get them through, because it must be very, very disappointing after all that work. And I'd just like to know that all of us really, we can only guess at how much goes into it, but we're disappointed for you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your comments. I fully support your comments there to do with the outstanding job that the engineering department have done to do with applications and things, everything, and that's been noted at a state level too, through RMS. Outstanding applications that we've seen. As Mayor, and I know I have the full support of the council in the meeting with the engineer that to do with this, that we didn't get to give with that second round, that do anything we can to redirect and involving our state and federal members to make them fully aware that how important this funding is for our council and for those areas. So I don't shift from there. And especially with the Brookston, been a little bit like a second full cousin for a little bit. We're all very aware that that money, when the state government, God bless their soul, handed that road over to the council, or this council, with a sum of money, that money's still there. And to full credit to the engineering department that with the costings, to add to that to do a proper job of that realignment and everything there. So we just got to look at another angle, council, and that's what we'll be doing. Some points I do want to make, Mr. Engineer, it's always good with these reports, but the work that's been done at the Grower in conversation with RMS, credit out that this is one of those unique things that it'll be a first with the state and with the council. We're proud of the work that's done out there and your good departments with involvement. Hopefully that without us showing the support and happy to kick in financially for this bridge, that we form a great relationship with RMS once again to see a rollout of such work done right across our shop. That's what I'd like to see, and either they be double lane or single lane, because there's plenty of places that these could fit, but it's good stuff. Questions, comments, councillors to do with the report? No? Yes, sorry.
I just make a comment. Just in relation to points on page 93, just to bring to council's attention that in 2015, as council to be aware, we undertook on the advice of the Geographical Maze Book to look at renaming the locality of Maryland to Maryland Station. There was extensive consultation which occurred at listed at the time. There was also reports that came to council, and council resolved following a number of consultation to rename the locality to Maryland Station. That resolution was referred to the Geographical Maze Board for tabling at their next available board meeting, and for reasons unknown to me, they have resolved not to progress the renaming of Maryland. So they've resolved to keep the status quo. So I think it's just important to reinforce to council, but also the people in the gallery here, that Maryland will remain Maryland. We have actually written to all the landowners out there, thanking them for their efforts. Apologise for any committees that might have been forced, but it's a decision of the DMV, not council.
Councillor Berry?
Through Mr. Mayor, to the director. With the government new landfill, what's the time life of the life left of the landfill itself?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I probably shouldn't ask that. Yeah. The land, as council will be aware, the Oscar of the landfill some time ago was given to point into no life. As a result of council borrowing money and changing the way that the landfill is managed, the lifespan has been extended significantly up to that year. There is a landfill master plan which has just been process of being reviewed. That will come back to council's strategic document about how we actually manage it. But hopefully that may come to council in July or August for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's your question, Councillor. Councillors, any more questions to do with the engineer's report? No? All happy to receive and note. Stop. Yes, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 101. That's wrong. Item ENG 22/16 to do with the dam wall safety upgrade progress report. I'll move in a second here. Councillor Murray, thank you. Second, please, Councillor Petrie. And once again, I'll hand over to Director of Engineering Services, Steve Phillips, engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the most important council to provide an update on the status of the dam wall safety upgrade. As council would be aware, council adopted a preferred contractor to progress the dam wall upgrade. There was a hold from that because council had not received confirmation of stage 3 funding from the minister. I can inform council that that confirmation has since been received as a result of the ignorance that our general manager has had. And also the band. So since that time, the contracts have been let. Contractors are doing up to project as soon as that.
I can share with the council that our statement will be up next week and through Nolan will inform all councillors of the time and because of the get down to Dan Wall and Gordon comes a big announcement to do with the funding and so we'll keep you in the loop there. Those who are available for a photo shoot, that'll be really good. That's next week. Something like that. So anyway, we'll keep you informed. Any questions to engineers to do with this? No? All happy to receive a note on the doc? Yes, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to 104, item ENG 23/16, naming an unnamed road, Gilbert Road. Could I move in second here, please? Councillor Holt, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Petrie. And I'll hand over to our engineer, Mr. Stephen Bell, to present this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's an unnamed road reserved off Kildare Road, which residents have written to us asking that it be named. Clearly, if you live on an unnamed road and you call for emergency services or assistance, there's a need for people to know how to get there and where that road is. So council has gone through advertising process, consultation process to ask residents that access that road how they feel about naming the road, and more particularly, it used to be named what name it should be. And the advice from landowners, two names that were forward, advice from the officers is that name the parties name, and that was taking question.
Questions to the engineer, comment to do with this report? Councillor Berry, yes?
Just a comment was for today in Blackjack, that can refer to introduced species as well. It should have, when things get like that, there should be the most common name, which is Pacific Blackjack. And that's too long. That's too long for a name anyway.
3 years ago, I have a limited budget. I don't let you go.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer. I do have a comment. In any report, and I want to pass this on to you, engineering officers, because I read this and as councillors were asked about such things as the process you go through. Main objectives of naming this unnamed, unmaintained road reserve is to it's quite simple and tells you why we're going to do it, with emergency services and all that. And then of the process that you need to follow to do an Aboriginal names, local history, it's a good report. And it's brief and it's to the point, and as a councillor, it helps me to understand why we do this. And so I do please pass on the staff. I enjoy that sort of stuff. It's good. It's informative. Any more comment, questions, people here?
Any more bridge on that road?
I know. All happy to receive and note and adopt. Karen, thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 107. It's item ENV 31/16, activities for strategic planning environmental department. I'm moving the second here, please, to deal with this one. Councillor Shipman, I thank you. Second, please. Councillor Peters. Start again. Peters. And I hand over to our Director of Strategic Plan and Environmental Services, Mr. James Rafai. Welcome, Mr. Director.
Thank you. Good morning again, councillors. Before you is the update for the Strategic Planning Environmental Services Department for the month of May. It's fairly self-explanatory. There is an omission of one lottery of Sallyard's numbers, which I'd just like to remedy now. There was a feature sale left off the figures, totaling 2,704 head at 1.8 million in revenue. So that does count that total and does rectify that.
Mr. Director, can I just verify that? So your total figure is correct. There's just one figure missing.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's correct. The total figure is correct.
Yes.
The missing row of the table there was the feature sale at 2007.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look, other than that, just a couple of points of interest. There's been a number of works occurred at the Tenterfield Cemetery. The boundary fence and the expanded area of the cemetery has commenced installation, and the new garden works have been completed for the niche for most garden and cemetery. Financial impact. New exercise equipment was installed in parking down as part of the summit.
Questions to our Director to do the report, councillors? No questions? You all happy to receive a note and adopt? Yes, carried. Thank you. Councillors, we move on to page 110. Item ENV 32/16. Planning development update. I'm moving second here to deal with this information. Councillor Pete, thank you. Take it up. Please. Councillor Perry, thank you. Once again, I'll hand over to the Director of Strategic Planning and Environmental Services, Mr. Rubin.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. To all councils, planning and development update for the month of May. That information sent through to the May Bureau based on our for the month. We have 8 applications received, 9% approved by the department, approximately $670,000 for development fund. 2 subdivision applications received. Those subdivision applications were only boundary adjustments, so there was no additional lots created.
Question to our Director to do with the report, councillors. Councillor A, yes?
I couldn't see anywhere under determinations issued or matters outstanding, applications currently outstanding. What happened to the cross of the Catholic Church, which appeared last month? I've no idea where it's going or anything, but I just couldn't find whether it's been withdrawn or whatever.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is only for your information report, and I tend to err away from trying to get into discussion about individual applications. It is still in tow. We are still dealing with those particular components.
Thank you, Mr. Director. More questions, comments, councillors? No? Be aware, councillors, as always, in your hard copy, just go from page 110 to 115, yes? All happy to receive and note. Not against, carried. Thank you. Councillors, page 116, item ENB 33/16. Acquisition of Crown Land by Roads and Maritime Services for New Chapman Bridge. So I'll move in the second to deal with this item, please. Councillor Peake, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Peters. Once again, I'll hand over to our Director of Strategic Planning, Environmental Services, Mr. Repine. Mr. Director.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this is a report which I feel is fairly comprehensive in terms of recommendations being for you. Essentially, to sum it up, that as of 2014, the Crown Reserve in question, which does abut the land where the current Tabula Bridge sits and underlies the proposed route to the new Tabula Bridge, was devolved to Council as a corporate reserve manager in 2014. The position of Council and the work that's gone into this so far is in line with Council Strategy 2.1D and the preferred route for supporting the Tabula Bridge. The RMS has requested that Council provide written concurrence to acquire 1.007 hectares of total 1.311 hectare lot for the purposes of securing the new Tabula Bridge corridor. The Crown Lands Department have given approval pending Council's consideration. Council have also, the RMS will provide all the surveying and all the costs involved there, so it's important to note that in providing Council concurrence, there is no direct cost to Council. So Council's also advised the RMS of the current native title claim, which is overlying that and surrounding that. Again, it's not something which Council has a lot of input to. It is something which is handled by a specialist team within the department plan. So the recommendation is basically for Council to give a written concurrence to the RMS to compulsorily acquire the land in question. Another point for information, the RMS is also to acquire land that holds the Lassiter Memorial Plaque and Monument, which is on an adjoining. Another recommendation before you is the Council request advice from the RMS as to how, as to their consideration, whether it's going to be maintained, relocated, etc. So, the recommendations before you, I'm happy to take.
Question to our Director to do with this report. No? Just a comment and to share with Council because it's in a relevant spot. Mr. Director, thank you for the report. It supports our Council supporting the building of the new Tabula Bridge, which we always have, to share with Council in the state budget. Council is with our state member. Done very, very well and with the big project, where they've committed $5 million to this project, the Tabula Bridge. To see it start, they've announced $7 million to share with all councils across the Council for local road work, and we hopefully get our fair share of their $7 million. They've committed money to the Bolivia Hill project. They've committed money to Brookster Highway. But these are all big projects that in the future, further the state government, that we hope will be rolled out. So we've done very well, I feel, with the money that's coming in last week. I just wanted to note that. To do with the noting and formal request is so important, to do with the Harry Lassiter Memorial down there, because this Council obviously employs a real Lassiter's gold reef and the history there, and that him, his wife and children did with them. So it's really important that it's in our shire, because that's where we built that house. And it's so important. So I'm really pleased that that's in Mr. Engineer and Mr. Director, and Michael support all that. Councillors, any more questions or comments to the Director? No? All happy to receive and note and adopt. Answer code. Councillors 119, page 119. It's item ENV 34/16. Colour schemes for historic buildings and conservation areas. Can I move the second to deal with this item, please? Councillor Murray, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Cole. And once again, I'll hand over to our Director of Strategic Planning and Environmental Services, Mr. Director.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, what we have before you is a very comprehensive report which has taken months for the Heritage Advisor to put together on our behalf, and their recommendations before you are based solely on the Heritage Advisor's advice as well as our town planning principles, the the fact that Tenterfield, I'm not going to go through all of the details of the report because it would just take far too long. The recommendations really are based on the fact that, to sum it up, Tenterfield has extremely strong heritage character within the township itself and throughout the outlying villages. There is a significant number of remaining buildings within the Shire, whether they're farmhouses, they're tobacco sheds, they're cattle stations, or buildings throughout the main street here, which showcase heritage from a variety of eras moving through Australia. So, very strong heritage characteristics in terms of what is still available here in the Shire. Once they're removed, they're basically gone forever. Alterations, therefore, even aesthetic alterations can impact the building long term. They can impact the holistic heritage values that we have throughout the Shire. And even if they are only purely aesthetic changes, they can affect the entire locale surrounding them in terms of heritage fabric and value. I think that the heritage advisors made a lot of those points very clear and gone into a lot of detail. Recommended changes are really just to support the provisions surrounding painting of heritage buildings. And they're to be included in the Tenterfield Development Control Plan 2014, the DCP, which is the planning document that supports and is referenced in the Local Environmental Plan 2013. Recommendations basically assist everyday management for the painting of heritage items. They'll give guidance to both the staff internally as well as the community. They provide transparent and consistent decision-making principles, as well as efficiency in staff time and cafeteria to enter into interactions with potential other proponents. So look, I do commend the report to you as recommended, but I'm happy to take questions.
Questions to the director to do with the report? No questions, councillors? Comment? Councillor Vera.
Previous Mayor, Director, if we're going to go down this path, I don't think it really serves the heritage buildings all that well. I know people in the district well not list their buildings on the heritage register. There's buildings downtown that people won't paint, so I believe, because of all the bureaucratic red tape. And I think we should go down the user-friendly path. Now, some of the colours mentioned in this colour chart back in the booklet there. My grandmother's house was built in the 1870s sometime, yet they had blue that was probably very close to the flag behind your head, Mr. Director. And blue's not even mentioned in there. And that house disappeared in the 1950, late 1950. And there was a green, or should we use green or Paris green? I remember Mum talking about that. Some of the old buildings were painted in those colours. There was a yellow, I think it was lead chromate, it was about as yellow as that dominant flag. Those colours aren't mentioned. There was, what was that one? Post office red and fire engine red. They were used. Some of the buildings, and they say here that the dark colours shouldn't be used. And yet, the area where I grew up, most of the buildings there were built before 1914. And they were very dark brown, if not black. School, they got the Somme School, and the Somme School building was all the same colour. It wasn't until the, I suppose, getting to the 60s, when I grew up, that some of these colours were actually changed. So I think that it's a bit over the top, some of the heritage advisors' colours there. That's just my comments anyway.
You want to comment, Mr. Director?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. The advice from our heritage advisor is coming from a professional standpoint. She is a state listed and renowned heritage advisor. She's actually recommended by the Office of Environment and Heritage in New South Wales. I think it would be prudent to consider her advice as being at an expert level in terms of the colours that are listed in their councils. They are, and it's noted in the report, they are recommend. They're only, for information, they're from one single palette, and they really are only an example. They're not a limiting factor. The Heritage Advisor continues to provide free advice to anyone who is undertaking works to a heritage structure, which in some other local government areas, people are required to actually pay for their own heritage advice prior to lodging in the application with council. So, I would also say that we have made it extremely easy for anyone within the heritage area to put in an application in terms of a minor works application, which negates the need for a full development application. So I think if anything, the process for applying for a consent or approval in the heritage area is much easier here than it is in a lot of places, particularly in terms of heritage.
Councillor, you indicated?
Thank you. All of the provisions of the report are fine. I like them all. I guess when I went through this, my difficulty is in including them in such detail as legislation, because once they become part of our LEP, they are actually legislated. And that I'm just having people talk to me about this. It seems a rather heavy-handed way to do it. There may be ways which are more encouraging, because our objective as a council is surely to encourage conservation and restoration of our historic building, heritage buildings, wherever they, or not just buildings, but artifacts, whatever. Art, yes, anything. And just driving around, we've got too many that are falling into disrepair. But I know that some people won't go near them because they feel they lose control over either their business or their home when they try to do something with that building. And that's what, that divisiveness is something I'd like to see us avoid if we could. So it seems to me that the principles already enunciated in our DCP are very good. We could add to those the provision A and provision B, because they also have good reference material in them. If we could do that and then provide, and this I think has been needed for some time, the rest of the provisions in the form of a manual, which would probably have to take in more than just colour schemes. And that manual could become part of a heritage conservation manual, which council would provide to owners and prospective owners, and I think that's important, of heritage properties in the Shire or in our heritage precincts. That way we could avoid conflict and allow for people, individuals, to make informed decisions concerning their investment instead of avoiding investment in it. And at some stage, I would like to move an amendment, but there are others waiting to speak.
I'll come back to you with that, Councillor. You flagged an amendment. Before we, do you want to comment, Mr. Director? Before you do, just so I get this. The Councillor, you referred to A and E. Is that on page 122 of this?
122, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Director, did you want to comment on that in your Councillor Shipp?
Thank you.
Just quickly, just to perhaps shed some light on a few of the points that were raised there, Councillor and Mr. Mayor. I think it's a misnomer that people will not have things listed because they are afraid of the tenants that may affect them in terms of having a listed property. If anything, having a heritage listed property actually opens up for a vaster range of funding and support than not having a heritage listed. So I'll make that point in terms of the planning regime. Secondly, the DCP is not direct legislation. So putting something into the DCP is something which affects the way in which our planners assess an application that is put before them. It's akin to a council policy that is referenced in the LEP. So a legally enforceable policy as opposed to actually being a legal instrument of legislation. Secondly, look, if council's prerogative is to put this into a manual as opposed to the DCP, that's fine, but I will make the point I will make the point that for ease and transparency and consistency in decision making, it's more effective for us to have these precincts within the DCP itself, as it is a single point of reference for the town planning and building staff. It is also much easier to refer people to a single documentation than it is to multiple documents with that information when it comes to.
Thank you, Mr. Director. I'll go to Councillor Simon for a comment and Councillor Hull after.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Berry's comments. But in saying that, we as a council are very extremely lucky to have the advice of an experienced heritage advisor. And not only that, I can appreciate there's a lot of older homes that have original homes, but there's a lot of older homes that are going there as well. And I was very interested in reading the reason why heritage homes cannot be painted black, because it gives a number of reasons. So therefore, I think we've got to go with the advice of the heritage advisor. It's gone off, but I did push it off.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Hull. And as chairman of our Heritage Committee, Councillor, welcome. Councillor Hull.
I'd just like to mention a few points. First of all, I personally know of at least a dozen people who bought houses in town because they are heritage houses in a heritage environment, and they've chosen to be here. They've invested money in renovating their houses. This is going to be good for the town. As in my role as volunteer at the Visitors Centre, I'm also very aware of the number of people who come in there absolutely gobsmacked with this town and the fact that it's original, that it's the way it's always been, and it's your interest. They're stopping because they can see. There's mention in the coastal newspapers about our facades on our buildings in the town, complaining, why can't we do this anymore? Pushing this heritage thing for the, and I really think we can't place too much emphasis on that. There will be the odd person who will object to football colours or whatever's on the paint pamphlet at the moment, and they're all coming out in black and white at the moment because it's a fashion. They look up, they look past, and then the damage will be done. But once paint's put on the bricks, your drainage is ruined, you get rising down, bricks fall apart on these old Chesterfield bricks, you know. It has to be driven by conservation. I think it's very, very important.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I go to Councillor Lay for your flag amendment, Councillor, any more questions going to do the report? Councillor Lay.
If I might, I could clarify first a couple of things with the director. If it's in the DCP and that's part of our LEP, then this is a non-statutory document. Am I correct? I need to be really clear on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's in terms of how we would use it. It's what you might call a legal policy. So it is a document that is not legislation, but council can use it to means in terms of how we assess planning and development instruments. That's probably the most simple I can put it without going into a full workshop on how a DCP relates to an LEP, but it's a legal enforceable policy, so to speak. The plan itself, yes, it is referenced in the LEP. The LEP is referenced in the environmental plan assessment.
Thank you. So yes, it is legally enforceable. So I presume that there could be fines or demolition instructions, or not demolition, but you know what I mean, undoing instructions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no more than there already is.
Right. Okay. This is good for me to know because this has clarified something for me. And obviously, from what you've said, putting it in the DCP makes the whole thing easier for staff. when something comes before them. I mean, certainly no one would doubt that I'm much in favour of conservation and restoration, and that it be done authentically according to the at the time best practice, and this does change a little over time. So, although you might know, there certainly are people who refuse to buy in the heritage listed area, and I know when looking at old houses myself, I was told by the agent, this is a heritage listed building, and I was thrilled, but not everybody is. I'm just looking at what's driving investment in the town and what isn't. I think because I did have an amendment, yes, and having a second manual is not a useful thing. If the DCP and it's detailed, and if people were made aware of it before they do something which actually contravenes it, it would be very helpful. So I think in the light of the director's responses to me, I will not move an amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Before we move on, councillors, I do just, it's only a comment, and it's in support of how lucky we are to have a good heritage. Councillor Berry, I fully understand your challenge on CEO colour schemes because I done exactly the same thing as me. But one, I was, because they've done a great job, she convinced me, because I said, we weren't there, how do you know? It was black and white photos, how can you tell what colour they were? And she explained all that, how they come up with these heritage schemes. And she won me over. So I'll be sharing that with you, but I know where you come from. Yeah, well, you said you grew up in the 60s, you liar.
Yes, that is true.
I grew up. But councillors, we will move on. So it's been a good discussion and questions to do the report. All happy to receive a note. Thank you, councillors. Sorry. Okay. Councillors, we'll move on to page 125. It's item ENV 35/16. Tourism and mixed stats. Can I move in a second to deal with this report, please? Councillor Shipman, thank you. Second by Councillor Petrie. And once again, I'll hand over to our Director of Strategic Planning and Environmental Services, Mr. Rafal. Mr. Green.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to all council's final report from the operational section for this meeting. The report for you is just a standard update for the Tourism Visitors Information Centre for the month of May. I'll just pull a few points of interest out of the report. Visitors for May 2016 were up by 15.9% when compared to the previous year, around 1,800 or around 1,900 versus about 1,600 visitors. 2 guided bus tours undertaken in May. Total merchandise sales through the VIC of $1,848. Total website visitation for the financial year to date at around 63,900 visits, which is quite an impressive number. Additional followers gained on multiple social media platforms. In terms of the visitation to the VIC, 44% of visitors during the month of May were from the target market of Queensland, with 11.6% coming from Brisbane, 40.9% of total visitors from New South Wales. Of international visitors to the centre, 40.4% of those were directly from New Zealand and 27.7% from Europe. There's not a lot I'll say on the report, so I put it to council, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillors, questions, comments to the Director to do the report. Councillor Berry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. With Southern Neon's running their VIC the same as we run ours now, will it make it any easier for us to do joint marketing and that? Or we've assume we've got MOU. I presume the MOU covers tourism as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I can't comment on whether it'll make it easier or difficult, given their change in management, etc. But I will say that yes, the MOU does specifically target tourism, and our tourism obviously is in contact with the Southern Downs, both Warwick and Stanwell tourism to continue joint marketing opportunities where they have the potential to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillors, any more questions, comment to the report to the Director? No? All in favour, receive the note, adopt, against, carry. Thank you. Councillors, that's the end of reports from officers. We move on to a notice of motion. We do have a notice of motion, page 129, the road tourism funding. Councillor, it's item NM6/16. Councillor Berry, you brought the notice of motion. You're happy to move the notice of motion? Thank you. A second, please. Councillor Hay, I thank you. And I'll hand over to you, Councillor Berry, to present your notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to move this motion at all until we got secured some funding. I was hoping at $8.8 million, but I noticed we've been promised $24 million, so this can carry on. I presume we're going to get some of that. I'm just hopeful. I'd just like to talk on each point in detail there. The first point, Sealing Young section of the Mount Lynchie Road. There's more and more traffic using this road now between, I would say, Brisbane and Legume anyway. And a lot of visitors stop at Legume store there and ask where they can go. When they find it's a dirt section, they turn off and go to Warwick. There's bus tours go to the mill at Legume. They can't come to Liston to see the Lavender Farm or any other thing at Liston because of the dirt road. That's just a little bit on that one. Number two is the sealing the Angersfield Clarny roads. When we have events at Liston, virtually no one can go anywhere else in the Shire in a hire car. It's like living on an island, actually, surrounded by deep water and sharks. So that really isolates us. And not so much Clarny in the same section because they can go through to Brisbane. Upgrading the Tulare Rookout Road through the World Heritage Listed National Park. At the moment, tourists are being deterred there to stay the road. I often ask people about it, and they say, oh, look, I've been there once and that's it. I'm going there again, and yet it's extremely beautiful drive, as most of you know, as John Longard said as well. Number four, the Legume store often tells me, why don't you stick some signs up there to tell people where our parks are, especially Broadrock. That's it. One of the major marketing things this Shire has got. You're very poorly signposted anywhere. There should be signs, Jennings, the other side of Warwick, wherever. It would be possibly the easiest marketable thing on the, what I'd say, virtually the whole of Granite Belt, Southern Downs region, right through to Tamworth. And yet, there's no sign saying it. I think that's a real, what do you say, something about how pathetic national parks are at marketing their own product. Number five is to promote, we've got the Commonwealth Games coming, only 130 k's from our border. Yeah, that's going to open up a heck of a market for us, and yet we're going to miss out on a lot of that on the northern end there. They can come down to Mount Lynchie, get as far as Legume going to Warwick at this stage in a hire vehicle. So we're missing out on that. If they go down to New England, fuel travel to here, but we're going to still miss out on all that tourism coming to Tenfield, I feel. And I think we should really be looking at something going. And with the games there, I already contacted the organising people that, and said we've got some excellent sporting facilities in the Shire. I mentioned the Sporting Shooting Association thing at Edinburgh because they can use that for practice. So, you know, I think I've said enough.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lyon, moving second of the notice motion. Do you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, this motion is actually about capitalising on all those visitors to the Commonwealth Games, to get them into the Shire. We want them to come over the border to the high country, not just stay on the coast. That's too easy. And we don't want our roads to be Port Cousins to Queensland roads as they come over the border. We've Gary certainly has highlighted a lot of roadworks. Whether we can do that is another matter, but we could get visitors to come. The Southern Downs, through their economic development and their sports people, have been very proactive for some time in getting sporting teams to use their facilities, and some of them just need sort of open space like our showground for practice prior to the games. I mean, they've been in contact with the actual organisations and the coordinators, and they've got them coming up. As they come with their officials, they come with their families who need things to do. It seems to me that we've got a few, well, Gary has spoken of one. We could also leverage off what the Southern Downs people are doing, because we've got this joint cooperative tourism objective with them, and they've done a lot of work, and if we could join with them, I think we can get a number of those visitors, and we've still got time to do it. The games aren't until 18. So for that reason, for me, this is a tourism venture, and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any other comment or against to do with the notice of motion? Councillor Murray, yes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's a gallant effort, quite frankly, that I feel that they have been extremely generous to us. I feel we should hold back to at least after the election to find out if we're going to get any funding at all, let alone expand our request for funding.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any more comment either for or against to do with the notice of motion? If I can, Councillor, Barry, before I get to the place, please respect my name, purely questions, and I raise some stuff. I'm going to involve the engineer, Mr. Engineer, pay attention, please. You'll have to use your fingers for this too. Purely question. To do with the ceiling of unsealed road, how much unsealed road left on the net? 16, 18 codes? 7, thank you. And Councillor Berry, to do with my concern, and we've been very good at doing this, fully support any funding we could ever get to do the Lagoon will crack right from where the turn-off is on the Lagoon, the Woodmore, right through to Wallaby Creek Bridge, whatever. But I always think we've got to be careful, because with the Alliance Group, to do with the success we've had, because we haven't shifted. And that's what the only thing that concerns me. I'm not supporting it. The other question I do have is, we did funding to Rex Science that were made for national parks. Is that something the national park should be doing? Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I'm pleased I've asked that. And the other to do with, and fully support the funding for promotion campaign, during and after the Commonwealth Games, is something with us being associate member at the moment of board to drive that, you know, and across the board. And before I go, I will bring our GM on this. Yeah, we had some comment to do with that last one.
Through you, thank you. The comment that I made to me during the week was that we've probably got, if we're going to look to be calling for ministers and members to provide money for tourism in and around the Commonwealth Games and the Gold Coast, we probably need to do that in numbers. Make a lot of sense to join with NOROC as far as New South Wales tourism goes, to say we want to bring money across the border full stop, because obviously they're really quite close there in NOROC, and we could piggyback off that and be a little bit more unique in that we are the high country of that group. I think we certainly need to be working with Southern Downs in that regard, and even if it is they slightly more close to us in the sense that people will want a day trip to us in those areas as well. And the other one, not to probably be forgotten, if council supports the motion time, is the New England High Country. So to again promote the uniqueness of the High Country, which NOROC doesn't do, with the exception of us, and also being mindful that everybody that has to go through to anywhere else in the New England has to come through Tenterfield. So I think there'd be an advantage for us to utilise all of those other groups to try and press our own devices as far as tourism funding. It's a competitive space. I'll play that straight up. But I think Tourism New South Wales or Destination New South Wales should really be putting some money towards trying to bring money across the border.
Thanks for your comments. I think it was really important, Mr. General Manager, for those. Just one more comment I need to make, Councillor, before we go to you for your closing remark, before we put in those motion. With the Mount Lindsay, and I've told the story 100 times and I'll share it again today. I moved to this area 19 years ago on the Richmond end of the lagoon and started out here at Thunderbolts High. And this council, over the years, with the different councils, has done an outstanding job to get that to 17 kilometres back. Because it was all unsealed, and a good unsealed. But that's exactly the honest truth. That's not that long ago. That's a long section of road. Obviously, the councils of the prior, and as we stand up, done a fantastic job. Council, closing remark to do, you know. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, just do you mind, Gary? I did have my hand up.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager. I think it's a fabulous idea, as we have a background understanding some of ours, to work hand in hand with them. I like this idea. Having attended all meetings with the customers, how do you think our approach to them will be received? Difficult.
Really, Mr. Chair, how long's the business stream?
Yeah, sorry.
It's hard to know. I think generally people will be interested when there's an interest for them. And there certainly is the people who stand to gain the most, the likes of the Tweeds and Balance and these malls, because they are so close. I'd be stunned if they hadn't already started to consider this. But I think if you can co-opt a broader support, which is what regional joint organisations, for us call them, are supposed to be about, to add further pressure to funding providers in the state, works for all of us. So I think on this one, if it was the systems, I think it was largely us, maybe not so much, but certainly on the grounds that everybody stands to gain, and in particular those other areas, then I won't be surprised if there wasn't concurrence.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepard. I apologise.
That's all right. Okay.
I'll go to Councillor Berry for closing comment.
Thank you. With the bus tours, we mentioned in our tourism before, there's one or two I want to go to the middle of June. Now, they virtually can't go anywhere. I'd like to go to Irvingville to go to the museum there and go through the lookout, but the road's too rough. I'd also like to go to Lisbon to the Lavender Farm. They don't go because of the gravel road. The other thing I really forgot to mention was the Tweed group. I thought about that and putting it in my bit of background information. I didn't think of the Tweed group. I thought they'd be doing it themselves and they'd ask picking back on them. I did think of writing to Adam Marshall or sending a copy of whatever we do to Adam Marshall anyway because of the ports to table in, because they've got to go through Tenterfield. And when the Minister for Inland Development was here, I mentioned this to him, and I said, look, we've got nearly 30 k's of road to bitumen. He said, we've done a few k, and we've done a bit on that. We're doing some on Amesville, we've done a little bit out in the Mount Lindsay. And he said, how much is it going to cost? I said, we get about 600,000 for 2 k's. He just took a few figures through. He said, that's only $20 million. He said, that's nothing in New South Wales. He said, get Thomas George Wishbrook, we wasted $1 million on a bloody stadium down here. So, you know, that was his comments about it. So, and to answer Councillor Murray, yes, I was worried about asking for more money on the stage, but the Commonwealth Games are now, they're not. That was the only reason I went now. Otherwise, I would have left it. I think we should be going for a thing. I think we are to every business in the Shire to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a closing comment. Councillors, the notice of motion has been moved by Councillor Berry, second by Councillor Wade. All in favour of the notice of motion? Against? Notice of motion's up. Okay, councillors? We move on to urgent business without notice. There's no urgent business without notice. It's confidential matters for consideration. We do have a confidential part. So can someone move, we move to confidential, please? Councillor Murray, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Lay. All in favour? Against? Carried. Would ask the media and the public gallery, please leave.
Okay, we're done.
Because it's okay, councillors, we're back in our open meeting. As the rules are, I need to read the recommendation for the confidential part. And the recommendation is, one, that the Director of Engineering Services report entitled tender 09-15/16, road construction works Mount Lindsay Road, MR 622, be received and noted. And further, two, the council award tender 09-15/16, road construction works Mount Lindsay Road, MR 22, the town's contracting group for a lump sum tender price of 1.879923.79 GST exclusive. And three, that the shortfall of funds for tender 09-15/16, road construction works Mount Lindsay Road, MR 22, 622, being 219,000 be allocated, in the 2016-17 annual budget. Thank you, councillors. Any questions for the next meeting? No questions for the next meeting. I close this meeting for June, and thank you very much for your attendance, spirit of meeting. And the meeting is closed. Peace and harmony. Thank you all. What's that? Thank you. None of us have got lunch, is it? What's later? Anyway, we'll put that on there.
Okay, so can I have your
Oh, the confidential papers, councillors, please.
They're all here?
Just one. You've done very well.
You would have gone to, you would have gone to. I thought it was. I tell you what. I did get up there running. And you know, I said to you,
The chairman, I have one. And then we'll sort it out.
yeah, no, I don't even think. Well, I live in for Mr. Rich.
Yeah, get all done, mate.
I can feel a lumber room, thanks. Gee, the bloody greasy, guys. Actually, well, it's been this.
Do you enjoy the music? Tell me it was the
Once you've already been off this formalising it.
We had the same community come to us. And 30 minutes on. We did it.
So that way.
Put in size in the ceiling, extension. Put in the ceiling.
Yeah, cool. So we put that on the always.
Let's go. Nothing you do.
My concern is not something.
The other issues is
Listen.